theater.
No, in Wheeling, the church was burning down, I think it was.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a theater. Knights of Columbus Hall?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it was not a theater. Okay. I was mixed up.
Yeah. Is it on now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So you got called one night, or Annette called, right?
Yeah, well, she called and told us that I think I gave this part where it was burning, and I saw the floor cave in, and I thought that all my books and things were gone. And that night, the pastor from the Methodist church, I may have said this before, that he called and said we could use his church the next day in the afternoon. So that was right next door to us. So we used the church. And then Monday morning, I went to the firehouse, and I asked the fireman there, the head, the chief or whoever he was, I said, I wonder if you would send a truck back there in the alley and go up the back window and see if there's anything. I said I had a study in the back there, and I said, maybe there's something there we can salvage. I said, all my books and everything was in there, my typewriter and so forth. And he said, we soaked that place all night. We soaked every corner. He said, I don't know. And they did. They poured water on it all night. It was a big building. And he said, I doubt, sir, if there's anything there. He said, but I'll send somebody up. So they sent him in. He backed the truck in the alley, the fire truck, and put the ladder up. And the guy went up the ladder and looked in the window there, and he looked the second time. And he called his buddy up, his friend up, and he come up. And he said, sir, he says, this whole room is intact. He says, all your stuff's here. And the thing had broken off right at the study there. And there was...
You could see the walls had fallen outside.
Oh, yeah, it caved in. Everything was, yeah. And he said it broke off right there. And there was a restroom on one side, and then my study. And that little bunch of stuff there, the back wall was intact. It was still intact. And so he said, so he called his friend up there, and they took everything down. There wasn't even a drop of water on it, on any book. I mean, there was a little bit of drizzle that day, kind of drizzling, and some things got wet from the rain outside. But they said there wasn't a drop of water on anything. And he was amazed. He couldn't believe it. It hit the newspapers.
Yeah, I think we had that article.
Yeah, it was in the newspaper the next day. And he was amazed at that. And I said, well, I prayed all night about my books. I said, man, because I work hard for those, and I paid a lot of money for some. Those books are expensive. And I said I hated to lose them. And so anyway, that was one of the miracles the Lord did in Wheeling. And then we rented another hall there to have services, and we went from morning. That's when we switched then from afternoon to morning service. Like I told the people, I said, hey, nobody worships at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had Sunday school 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock we had the church service, then come back at 7:30 in the evening for the evening service. And I said, nobody does that, let's do like people do, we have service in the morning. So they finally did that. Then we left there and went to Bowling Green, Ohio. And that was just a 3-year, we were there just 3 years, I think. That's, we had, they had started a educational unit, and they had it closed in, but it wasn't finished, so we had to finish that. And this is where as you know, I never talked money with people when I went to a church to candidate. One reason was I'm as fleshly as anybody else, and if they talk money, it bothered me that it might have something to do with my decision to go to the church, so I never talked money. So anyway, they didn't even tell me what I was going to make or anything else. And when I got there, the first Sunday I was there, the treasurer come up to me and gave me my check, and he said, you don't even know what your salary is. I said, no, I don't. So anyway, we had a good ministry there. The Lord gave us some growth.
That
And
treasurer was Mr. Rupp, wasn't
Mr. Rupp, yeah. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they were a real special friendship.
They were. They really were. They're wonderful people. They really were. He was a staunch, very fine man. And then from there we went to Dayton, and we went there in '54. Yeah. And they had the building there on Gettysburg, you remember, where that was. You were
I
little
wasn't
then.
there, but I remember driving
Well,
by it.
yeah, but as a baby you were there. Yeah, we have a picture of Mom holding you outside the door there. And we went there, and the building, we had to finish upstairs. And they were trying to raise, trying to borrow $37,000 to finish the upstairs. The roof was on, but it was all hollow upstairs. And so they said they needed $37,000. So I said, well, they were negotiating with a company in St. Louis, some loan company. So I noticed their missionary giving was down and so forth, and I started pushing missions. I got there in June, and we started pushing missions for the fall. We had our missionary conference in the fall. So after the conference, our pledge went up $3,000, and for them, we had about 120 people, I think, at that time. And that was quite a bit of money for them back then. So one of the men came to me and he said, Pastor, he said, if that $3,000 would go a long ways toward upstairs. And I said, well, I'm not worried about upstairs. I said, the Lord will provide that. I said, I'm concerned about getting the gospel out. So missions was quite important with us. So anyway, by the next missionary conference, which was in October, we were upstairs. The building was finished. We had borrowed $3,000 from our national office, and we owed $3,600 on the pews. That's all, the debt we had. We were upstairs. We were finished. And so I told this fella. He came to me and he said, you were right. He said, God did provide. I said, well, we didn't put the first things first, getting the message out. And I said, God will bless us. And so they got their eyes open. Then the missionary place started going up there. So then the area went black, which was too bad, and we tried to reach those people. We really did. We had some kids come for VBS, some black kids. And so I went to the house and called on the parents and thanked them for sending the kids. And I said, we'd like to invite you to church. Well, they said, we go to our own church and, and this and that. So I found out that they like to be with their own people, and worship with them. So we saw then that one man put his house up for sale, and boy, it went right down the line. And so we had to sell it and get out of there and move up on Wolf Road. And we built that building up there. And then at that time, when I first came to Dayton here, WFCJ, the radio station, had just started, and so they asked me to be on the board of the station. And so I did. I served on there then for the 10 years I was here. And they asked me then to have I said, I'd like to have a radio program on 3 nights a week. So they said, okay. And they charged me, I don't know, $30, something like that. And so I was on 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 3 nights a week. So they came to me and asked me to go on 4 nights a week, then 5 nights a week for the same money. They wanted to fill that slot in. So we did. That was quite a schedule. I had, we were, preaching, and then every day I had to make a tape put my music on and everything, the whole thing. And we had our own little recording deal there. And then for 3 months I managed the station because they didn't have a manager. And that was toward the end of my ministry when we built the church up on Wolf Road. And but I learned a lot there. And then when I went to Lima, from there, I was here 10 years, and we went to Lima, and I thought I would stay here a while because it's a nice big church. You were there. You remember that one, don't you? And I liked it there. We had some nice people, and then I was driving back here to the to WFCJ once a month for their board meeting, and the second month I came down, going back home. I thought, well, I wonder if we could start a station up here in Lima, and so. The next time I came back here to Dayton, I talked to our engineer, Rodney Zemer, and I said, Rodney, would you check and see if there's a channel available for a FM station up in Lima? He said, yeah, I'll check it out for you. So next time I went down, he said, yeah, there's one up there. It's a Class A station. He said, yeah, there's one up there. So I got a hold of Stanley Tam and Art Arthur. Remember Art with his boat? And so I got a hold of them and formed a organization. We had to be organized, and went to their attorney, and just Tam took care of all that. We got organized. Then I got a hold of the attorney in Washington that we had on WFCJ had him. So I called him and told him what we wanted to do. So I said, would you get on with the paperwork there? So they did. He did. And so I told Stanley and the board, I said, now what my idea is to go into the churches in the area and try to raise the money to start the station. And they said, so Stanley came to me about a week later and he said, I'll take care of the station. He said, whatever it costs. So I got together with the engineer here, and I knew something about some of the needs that we had there, and because those guys didn't know anything about the station whatsoever. So we had the set up what the cost would be and so forth, and what we needed, and we added a few things that they didn't have here that we learned we should have up there. So we got the station going there finally, and it's going strong now. It's about 38 years old now, and they're doing a good job. And well, when I left there, the church in Columbus here called me, not here, but in Columbus called me, and wanted me to candidate, and the DS called me, and I said, I've only been here 3 years. I said, but I said, when I get a call, I always take an open door because I don't know what God wants me to do. So I said, I'll go, but I said, I really don't feel in my heart that I want to go to Columbus because I've only been here 3 years. Then we also started the church in Shawnee while I was there and gave them 52 people and started that church. So anyway, I went to Columbus, and I was the first candidate. And I thought, well, they'll get 2 more candidates, they'll forget about me. So after it was all over, I got the call to go there. And I really didn't want to go. Down in my heart, I didn't want to go. And I waited, and Mr. Clark called me, the DS, and he said, you're going to have to give those people an answer. He says, they're waiting. I said, well, I need to pray some more. So I was praying and praying, but I knew in my heart, God said, go to Columbus, and I didn't want to go. So I was praying one night, and I said, Lord, you got to show me what to do. And the thought came to me right away, you know what I want you to do, you just don't want to do it. And so I said, okay, I'll go. And so I called the DS the next morning and said, I'll accept the call. See, I was going from a church of 320 people down to you saw it was 120 people, 110. we did well to have 110 people. Had a secretary, you know, and everything was going well. And I just started the radio station. It was only a year old then, and I felt I was needed there, but the Lord had other ideas. So he sent me to Columbus, and we went to that beautiful building. I still don't know what those people saw in that building. Anyway, when I went to Columbus to candidate, I said to the board, I said, if you call me, I said, I want you to know this up front. Something got to be done with this building. I don't know what. We may have to redo it. We may have to move. I said, but I want you to understand, I don't want any problems after I get here. I want them to understand that. I said, something has to be done because you're not going to get anywhere the way you are. And well, they knew that. They'd been there, what, 2 or 3 years then, 3 years, and lost 100 people. And so anyway, so when we got there, when I saw the building and I saw some of the problems that they had and so forth, I realized it would take more money to fix that whole thing, you remember what it was, than to do anything, you know, to get out of there. So I told the board, I said, I think we need to move. And they were very good. They were very nice about going along with me. So we started negotiations with the city of Arlington. And the first, Bob Cormack, remember Bob Cormack? He was one of the trustees, so he went with me the first night at the council meeting. And some guy, he saw the agenda and he saw the church there. And some guy says, Max, anything has to do with Max Good, I don't want to even hear about it. And so then I stood up and I said, sir, Max Good does not own that building anymore. It belongs to us. We bought it with the Christian Missionary Alliance. We're a total different denomination. And I said, we know that that the building is in a bad shape. I know that. It's a sore eye to the community. And I said, we want to do something about it. And I said, we don't have the money to bring that building up to where it should be. So I said, we'd like to sell it and relocate. And that's why we're here. Then he quieted down. But it took me over a year of negotiations with them, meeting with them and so forth, to get the thing rezoned, because it was zoned for housing worth $75,000, no, $7,500 an acre. We had 3.5 acres. Well, that wouldn't even pay. They owed $120,000 on it. So I knew I had to get it rezoned. So we finally got it rezoned. We got a guy that would buy it, and we sold it to him for $220,000. So we paid it off, and we had some money left, of course, to buy the parsonage and the land out on Henderson Road. And we went from there and got the Wenrick come over and put the building up for us, and started there. And God gave us growth, you remember that. And we had a lot of people saved there, the Canals, of course, the one family, and quite a few. And after about, about 19, we moved there in 71 or 71 I think it was. And then in around 78, was it, I think 78 or 79, maybe around 80, we started getting filled up in the other building. Well, we were getting 80% capacity, and the rule is that when you get that, if you get there and you don't do something, you're going to go the other direction. So I told the board something had to be done. So we decided to add on the building, and I told him about Wenrick. I said he built this building. Now we had a lot of new people there, and we had guys like McCracken and what's the other man from Ohio State that taught, Holmes. Yeah, Holmes and somebody else.
Joseph was in there.
David Davis. Yeah. And they were on the board. And they said, well, Pastor, we want to put up a nice building. And I said, I do too. I understand that. We had to build a bigger building. and they said, we need to get an architect. I said, okay, but I said, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you plenty. And so before we, when we decided to build, I told him, I said, no, I don't want this to hinder our missionary giving, so I said, let's go to 2 services. So I went to 2 services for 4 years, and we raised $520,000, I think it was. Yeah, those 4 years. So we had that much money. So anyway, they went with their architect. The architect came back and wanted to put a building on the back of the other one with a basement and a spray system on the roof and all this stuff, you know. And I mean on the ceiling, and it was $890,000, and we couldn't afford that. So I told him, I said, I told you these guys will give you a building that you really can't afford to build. So I said, then they said, well, let's talk to Wenrick then, you know, they finally, but we paid $24,000 for the plans. That went down the drain. Wenrick came over, talked to them, and he said, you really don't want a basement here. He said, it's hard for older people, and he said, he recommended putting the building over where we put it. And his price was $620,000 for that 600,000, and 20,000. And so they went along with it. And Holmes, you know, Bob, came in one morning and he said, I was standing out there and Wenrick was there talking to the guy who was putting the shingles down. And he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm putting shingles down. He said, are you stapling those shingles? He said, yeah. He said, you're not going to staple these shingles, you're going to nail them. He made him take the staples off. Yeah, he just had one row across there. And Bob was there when he told him that. And Bob saw that this guy meant business, you know. So after the building was up, I said, what do you think, Bob? He says, he did a good job. He said, I said, we blew $2,400, didn't we? $24,000. He said, yeah. So anyway, you know the rest. The Lord blessed there, and we had a good ministry. We were running about 350 to between there and 400 when I left there, and we had. Last year we were there, we gave 130,000 to missions. The last year we were there. And I felt when I left, Tim, that my work was finished there, really. Mr. DeMars had an awful time with that. He really got on me about it. He felt I was doing the wrong thing. But I had two good friends, Dr. Fraser, who I said was on the ordaining council when I was ordained. He stayed in Pittsburgh too long. And he was there 5 years longer, and he should have stayed, and they were just eager to get him out all the time. Good man, godly man. I mean, he was a wonderful fellow, but he just stayed too long. See, and he was getting up in years. And Epperson down in Florida, a good friend of mine, he had a church of about 600 or 700 people down there. I forget, where in the world was it? It was South Florida somewhere. Anyway, he stayed too long. And they almost had to vote him out, see? And I thought, well, I don't want that. You know, I don't want that. I was 68 years old, and I felt they needed a younger man in there. Of course, they got Scholl. He wasn't that much younger, but he was younger anyway. And so that's the reason I left, really. I felt that I left when the church was at its peak, rather than wait to see it go in the other direction and let some guys do and then leave. And so we left there. And the Lord used us in other ways, you know. We were working, and I kept busy until I was about 80 years old. Then from there on, it kind of died down. But I kept pretty busy, thank the Lord. Then I was on the ordaining council, as you know, for about 30 years. And even after I retired, I was on there. They voted me and they wanted me to serve. So I served there till, I was about 80 when I got out of there. Yeah. I felt I needed some other people in there too. So that's about it, I guess. I don't know.
You were 60, how many years? You got
A 60-year plaque, yeah, in the ministry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
But you know, you say all of this, and it seems like you're bragging, but I just wanted, understood that all this the Lord did, you know. It wasn't, you can see that with my limited education and the things that I had against me when I started out, God had to work in my life and do what He did, or I wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't have been anything. And whatever success was, there was in the ministry, I give God the glory for that. He really did it all, not me. That's for sure. So.
There's a story we missed when you were young.
What's that?
Got to tell it. It's the formula story. I don't know how we missed that miracle story. For 29 cents.
Oh, that.
We totally missed
Oh,
that.
yeah,
This
that
is
was.
definitely for, you know, I mean, you're.
Yeah, that was.
Great-grandkids will.
Yeah, we. That was.
Where was that?
That would be just before I got saved. Just before. Probably. It wasn't 2 or 3 weeks. I left home in the morning to go to work, and Mom said, we don't have any milk for the baby. That's for Harriet. Harriet was a baby then. And I said, well, I don't have any money. I didn't have. I had a streetcar ticket. In those days, you got 6 tickets per quarter. And I said, that's all I've got. I've got 2 of those for my work. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll just have to wait and see. So I left, and I was under conviction. I was miserable, and my baby needed milk. I didn't have it. And so I missed my ride that morning. So I got on the streetcar and went down Livingston Avenue at that time, and it was out by the Walnut. Is it Walnut Creek out there? Mm-hmm. That's the one? Yeah. Alum Creek. And we were putting in sewers out there, working with WPA at that time. And so I had to walk across just a field, just a grassy field, that's all. And to get to where we were digging. And I was walking across there, feeling sorry for myself, under conviction. I was miserable. I wasn't right with the Lord, and I knew that. And we needed the milk for the baby, and I just felt terrible about everything. And I had my head down and looked down, and there was a quarter and 4 pennies on the ground. And I looked at it, and right away, in all my religious ignorance, I thought, well, God had to put this here. This is a miracle, you know. 29 cents, because I was buying, the milk was 6 cans for 29 cents that we bought. And exactly what I needed, just to the penny. And had it been a 50 cents or $1, it wouldn't have impressed me near as much. But 29 cents. And somehow I got, it shows how God works in your heart when you're His, you know, even though you're not there yet. And He works in your heart. He let me know that I put that money there for you. He let me know that. And I picked it up, and I said, thank you, Lord. And I wasn't even, at that time, I had not professed to know Christ. Let me put it that way. And so I took it home and told Mom. She couldn't believe it either, you know. Then another time, I forgot that, was in Frankfurt when I was working in Lebanon, Indiana. There I was laid off for about 2 weeks, and they finally called us back. And I had worked 1 week, and my check was $29 and something for the week. And the rent was $28. and it was due that day. And so when I left that morning, we didn't have anything in the house to eat, nothing in the refrigerator, and absolutely nothing. There was about a bowl of soup that had about that much tomato soup in it, and that was it. And I said, honey, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, I just don't have any money. And I said, I'm going to get paid tonight, but I'm not going to have much left then. And so I went to work and came back that night, and Mom had the table set and had some, I think she had made a meatloaf, you know, and potatoes and all. And I thought, where in the world did you get all this? So she said, well, I was, this morning, said Mrs. Swearingen came, she was a lady in our church, said she was having her devotions, and the Lord spoke to her and told her the Courlases had a need, and she brought us $20. So she went to the store and got the stuff and brought it in there. And
A lot of money.
huh? Oh, then it was a lot of money, yeah.
You said your weekly pay
Yeah,
was
my $29 a week pay, yeah. So,
That'd be like
yeah.
$1,500.
And then when I wanted to build a little church there in Frankfurt, I wanted to buy this land. They wanted $300 for the land. I didn't have any money. So I went to Mr. Pritch. He was a German fellow. He was a Lutheran, very godly man. He'd go to his church in the morning, come to my church on Sunday night, and on Wednesday night he was there. He was an old plumber. He was in the plumbing business, and he never wore a hat, never wore a coat, just a coat, a suit coat. Middle, it could be 0 outside, and he walked to church. It was about 4 or 5 blocks. He'd walk to church, and so I went to him. And I said, Mr. Pritch, I need $300. I'd like to buy it. I'll give you a note, and I'll pay you back just as soon as I can. I said, we want to buy this piece of property. So he says, fine. So he sat down, wrote the check, you know, and gave it to me. This was in early September, I think, maybe October. And so we bought the land, and Christmas time came, and we were worshiping then in a Seventh-day Adventist church. We moved out of the theater building to save some money. And so we met there for prayer meeting, and he came in just a couple days before Christmas, and he gave the children each $1. And then he handed me a envelope, and I opened the envelope, and it was a note that I had given him, marked paid. So, and then one time, we had been there about 2 years, we were there 5 years, been there 2 years, and he said to me, you haven't been gone home, have you? We hadn't been to Columbus for 5 or 6 years to visit our people. I said, no, I haven't. I said, we just can't. I didn't have a car. He said, you're going to use my car. You're going to go home for a week. And he gave me his car, and we went to Columbus to visit. Very fine, wonderful, godly man. You talk about godly Lutherans. He was one of them. Yeah.
I had a little Lutheran girl that Abby hangs out with recently gave me a Martin Luther bobblehead.
Did she? Huh. Where'd she get it?
What are some things that we'll talk about? Maybe this might be, that was like the story of
Yeah.
hitting all the chronology and stuff, but I would like to there's a few things, and there's probably things that were tough that you went through before I came around that I don't know about, or good, you know, whatever. And you've hit a few of those things. But there's a few things I'd like to talk about, and that's probably, if you don't mind, here I'll stop.
Well,
The hard one. Let's just talk a little bit. Just family things. There have been a lot of things. Now you, in a sense, kind of broke away from your Greek traditions and all those things.
oh yeah.
And basically started not only a biological family of your own, but you started a spiritual family in
Yeah.
some ways. And now there are, 20 grandkids, 7 kids, 20 grandkids. How many great-grandkids?
We have 32, I think.
Okay.
And
there are 2 great-great?
we have 2 great-great.
Great-great.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty,
Yeah.
and the generations will continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, there've been good things in the family, bad things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But the majority, probably the high percentage of all those people are believers.
Oh, yeah. As far as I know, most of them profess to know the Lord, yeah, even in the great-grandchildren. Yeah. It's that's the amazing thing about it, you know, that the Lord has been that good to us. And there would be 54 people we're talking about anyway, outside of our immediate family. See?
Over 60.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, you know, obviously, my viewpoint of theology now being very covenantal is, to me, that's a picture of that.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot in the Old Testament lately, and it's all, you know, especially in Genesis, and calling Abraham out. And,
Yeah.
even the whole Old Testament is
Oh, yeah.
full of God calling people to something,
Yeah.
and then blessing
Yeah.
all that they do.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a
yeah.
picture of that, too.
It's the same way with the Canal family. They, the way that started, I don't know if you know that or not. A lady in our church had came to me one time. She said, "I want to start a. Do you have enough tape?" She said, I'd like to start a Bible study in my home. Would you and have some of the ladies invite some ladies in our area to come?" And she said, "Would you teach it for me?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty busy," and I was at that time. But I said, "Let me think about it and pray about it." So I did, and I thought, well, the Lord said, "You better do it," you know, and you might win some people that need the Lord. So I said, okay. So it was at that first meeting that I had, and that Kathy Canal was saved. Okay. And then she won her husband to the Lord. And then when we were in Greece, remember, we came back, and Tom and Lynn had been separated, and they met me at the airport, and Bob, what's his name, assistant pastor, can't think, he's down in Florida. Anyway, he said, you have a wedding tomorrow. And I wasn't going to preach. He was going to preach because he didn't get home till 11:30, remember? And he said, I said, "A wedding? What are you talking about?" Yeah, and then he told me the Canal family. And when I went to Carlson, yeah. When I went to Columbus, I prayed for God to give me some Greek people, because I knew a lot of Greeks in Columbus. So anyway, I said, "Oh, Canal." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, it's going to be at his house." So that's where I went over there and married them and met the Canal family. And at that time, Nick they weren't too warm toward me, you know. But they were very kind, both of them. Hope was too. And that's what started the ball rolling. They started coming to church, and one by one was saved, one by one. What was it? I forget how many now. When you look at their grandchildren, I don't know how many are saved. There was 17. I know within a short time it was saved right there in the church, accepted the Lord.
And not just their family, but the Flowers family. Jerry.
Oh yeah, the Flower family. Yeah.
Amy.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of them. See, yeah. And then of course they've got grandchildren now that are saved, and it's just amazing. But another thing, we had there was a lady there. She was a doctor, an MD, and she came for about. Well, I think about the third time she was there, she got saved. She accepted the Lord. She was a very flashy gal and a beautiful woman, and her husband was a surgeon at Riverside, and so she got saved. And boy, she was on fire for the Lord. She really. Then when I forget the lady that had I can't think of their name now. They moved to Texas, I think. that had the Bible study. So the doctor said, have it at my house. And she lived up on Olentangy, way up past the, those beautiful homes back up in there. She had a gorgeous home. Her husband he was kind of against the whole thing. He kind of fought the thing, and gave her a rough time. He finally divorced her. And she came to our church once or twice, but she had a beautiful voice. She could sing. Whew, man, she could sing. And she went to Grace Brethren and attended church out there and so forth. But she was born again there. And we had some other people that accepted the Lord there through those Bible studies. But the main thing was that the Canal family got their start in this Bible study that we had there. And it's just amazing how God works, you know. Maybe she wouldn't even come to our church, you know. I don't know. Her father was a liberal preacher. He's a real liberal. He's the yeah, that guy was.
Well, at the same time this was going on, wasn't Marcia at the nursery school? There's some connection with the nursery school.
Well, no, yeah. When I first went there, they had the nursery school, and let's see, it was Jim was bringing his son there, and so after I became pastor there, one day Onda said to Jim, she said, we have a Greek pastor here. Well, didn't register too much with Jim, you know, he didn't say anything. So, but she told me about that, and so that they had a connection with the church in that respect, but yet that had nothing to do with them getting saved. You know, it was actually through the Bible study that this all started, and God laid it upon this lady's heart, you know, to have the Bible study, and Kathy was the first one to accept the Lord, and then she. To me, you know how Steve is, and for her to be able to convince him in a short time, that was a miracle, and God worked in their lives. And Nick, every time Nick calls me, he tells me about the first time he heard about grace in the church. You know, that you could save by grace, not by works. He reminds me of that.
Yeah, I remember Kathy very well. We spent a lot of time at their house.
Yeah.
They were tight with him and Becky.
Yeah.
And they had youth at their house a lot. She was a real sweet lady.
She was a precious.
It was sad how she how she went. But,
yeah. And Steve was a nice guy. He's got some heart problems right now, and a nice fellow though.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah, Nick has been good to us, and he calls me periodically, wanting to know how we are. And you need anything, Pastor? Well, I don't want to tell him what I need, you know. He's still not over what happened to, you know. As far as Danny was concerned, that was kind of a hard thing. That he got this cancer. You know, they thought he was involved in something at school where he game or something. Anyway, his knee started bothering him, and took him to the doctor, and they thought it was some kind of a arthritis or something. I don't know what it was. And they gave him some stuff to put on it and this and that, and then it kept getting worse. And finally, they took him to Columbus Children's Hospital, and they found out that it was cancer. And boy, it was a hard thing for that to see that little guy go down. But he accepted the Lord, bless his heart. And I think he was a turning point in that whole family. I think John and Mark and the whole bunch really got right with the Lord when this happened to Danny. Because Danny was really knew the Lord. He really, I think God used this to even bring Danny to himself. And it's amazing how God has to work sometimes to get people to himself. And And Danny was quite a witness to John. He told him at the last, I think, he says, John, I'm not afraid to go to heaven. He said, I know where I'm going. He said, I'm not afraid. And this impressed John. This really did. Really did. It was hard on Harriet, very hard on Harriet, and Harley. But it was they would come to Columbus, and he'd take him out to the University Hospital, and we'd go out there sometime with him. And a few times we would take him to that Coney Island place on Broad Street, remember, there under by the bridge. We'd go there. Maybe you were with us, I don't know. You were probably with us, I'm not sure. How old were you? You were older than Danny, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to be.
He was 16 when he died.
Yeah.
And I was, what, 1982?
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere in there, yeah.
I was about 24.
Well, yeah. But we had because I knew he liked hot dogs and things like that, and we'd go to that hot dog place, that Greek place, and but he did a little bit, and and we were at the hospital with him a couple of times, and he went through some of the whatever I forget what they did with the chemotherapy, and man, that poor guy, he hated to go through that. It was so painful, he said. And it was just hard to see your grandson. He was a sweet little guy. He really was. Yeah.
That situation impacted everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody in the family.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah. It was.
You were a pastor, in the evangelical church, as we were talking a little bit before. From the 40s, you said 47 was the year you got ordained?
I was ordained in 47,
So
but
from the 40s just after to late 90s, or the mid 90s at least, and you're still watching what's going on in the church. And what kind of changes did you see, happening? I mean, were there certain decades when you could see big, sort of titanic shifts?
yeah. When I first started in the Alliance, we were more carefree in our services, not much form, we just, things happened as they happen sometimes. And then when would I say that? In the 50s, early 50s, I'd say. We started to shift then to a more formal kind of service in the Alliance. We started with a bulletin and had an order of service rather than just, and which was unknown earlier in the early days of the Alliance. And it was more of a, I liked it better, and I think one of the, I know that Reverend Clark, our district superintendent, was often at our district meetings, district gatherings, he would give us what he called a fireside chat. He had a fireside chat. And many times he would talk to us about our service and how we ought to conduct it, and with dignity and so forth, And so we got to get, it got, I don't, after a while, I know nowadays they would say, well, that formality is, was a lot of nonsense. But to me, maybe coming out of the Greek church, maybe that had something to do with it, I don't know. I felt that it was, it was something that brought some dignity into our worship service, rather than just any sloppy thing going on, that goes on. And that was a big change that came into the Alliance, and that lasted actually until the new music came out, and the new methods that we have today. So it went from about 1950 to when this new stuff come out, just 1980, 80, somewhere in there, I think. Yeah. So I'd say about 30 years. But before that, we didn't have a bulletin. We didn't have any order whatsoever. We just, we had to get up and sing a couple songs, and just like you do on Sunday night,
It sounds like that was kind of out of the tabernacle tradition.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
how much influence did Tozer have in the new? He was formal.
He was formal. He had a lot. But we went, I think we started in that direction. I don't think he was that instrumental in that, but he was formal even before a lot of our churches got to that point. And even at council, we got to the place where we had some formality rather than just any old sloppy thing going, And not that formality is good. To me, it shows some dignity and some respect to God, I don't know, and I don't go for all the high liturgy stuff, I don't go for that either. But I think that a little bit of knowing what's happening in the service and planning something is important. And the idea was back then, let the Holy Spirit guide, let Him tell you, guide the service and so forth. And why can't the Holy Spirit guide me before I get to the service and as a pastor, direct me as to what to do, rather than wait till I get on the platform and then tell me what to do, So I couldn't go along with that. But that was a big change in the Alliance, I remember. And it wasn't long after I was in there.
Sounds like it was a little more Pentecostal in orientation.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. They didn't speak in tongues because Simpson didn't go for that. But there was nothing formal whatsoever. You couldn't tell the difference between the evening service, which we called, in the morning was worship service. The evening was, the morning, was worship. The evening was evangelistic service. It was an evangelistic kind of thing. That was a kind of a loose kind of a service, and then we have prayer meeting, of course, on Wednesday. But the morning service, when I first started, and even under Musselman, it was very loose and very, there was no planning, nothing like that. And I think that was the biggest thing that I saw in the Alliance. That, in fact, I think in most evangelical churches started going into a more formal kind of thing, and which I didn't think was too bad, because at first it was just, at least those that we called Bible-believing people were more, like you say, like the Pentecostals, and let anything happen, let the Lord lead, and so forth, thinking that was more spiritual than anything else, Or if you planned a service, that isn't spiritual. Now, even here, and that gets me every Sunday morning. I was, while I was saved in that era, and when it was a real loose kind of thing, I wasn't. I thank the Lord He saved me in that particular movement, because I grew in the Lord and so forth. But I was glad when we got some kind of form that gave some dignity to the service. To me, that was important. And I know not too long ago, Patty, that's Roger's wife, she was my pianist when I first came here to Dayton back in '54. And she was only 18 then. But anyway, she said to me, we were talking about this. She says, Pastor, she said, I think you're maybe because of your Greek background that you like a little more form. I said, no, it isn't that. I said, I just feel that to me, they like this old happy-go-lucky kind of, whoopee-doo kind of stuff. And I said, to me, when I worship God, it's a serious thing with me, And I know God, I'm happy. I can be happy in the Lord, but I don't have to run around, carrying on and so forth. But they think it's because I'm Greek, my background, and so forth. But that's not it at all.
Hey, Mom, you can come in and sit down. It was also part of that kind of Pentecostal style to it.
Mm.
Has that changed? Do you see the church?
Oh, yes.
Or is it-
Oh yeah. Now there's a strong emphasis. In fact, for quite a few years, right after I was saved, even to education and not. Is that what you mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And see, we started out. Even Simpson started out with the Bible Institute, which was a 3-year course and so forth. And a lot of our men at that time didn't get a whole lot in 3 years, they had teachers that I think were not that well educated themselves and so forth, and it was just the Bible, just to prepare people biblically to be ministers of a church. And I think as time went on, that this developed into the place where our men had to learn and had to study and had to know a little bit about the Bible and the history of the church and different things that were, I think, very, very important in ministry. And but it was a gradual thing, and it developed more when we got into maybe the 50s, 40s, and 45, 50, somewhere in there. That we started getting a little more in that area, and today, of course, and there's a danger of going too far in that, but I still think you can be educated and still be a solid believer, and ignorance is not bliss, I don't think. But back then they did.
Very few more minutes of tape left. I want to ask you simple questions. What's your favorite hymn?
Favorite hymn? I think it's the what's the name of that? One of the books has it at the cross, but that's the chorus. But there's also the hymn is written without the chorus, and I can't think of it, the name of it. And then Luther.
Do you have a favorite?
Luther's hymn.
Mighty Fortress.
Oh yeah.
Psalm 46.
Oh yeah, that's mine, huh?
Psalm 46, essentially. A hymn of Psalm 46.
It's Luther's.
Tell me the one of your favorite hymns here is.
Alas, and did my Savior bleed? I love that song. I think it's. I just love to sing it. Let's see. Is that the one?
274.
Wait a minute. This isn't the one. Great is thy faithfulness. That to me is a wonderful song too.
Yes, it is. And what was the third one?
Great is thy faithfulness.
The other one I didn't get on tape. Luther.
And
which one is it?
the one, Mighty Fortress is our God. And then this one we just had here, the Alas, and did my Savior bleed? And what was that one? Oh, no way.
Well, do you have...
There's some depth in what they say, where the modern stuff doesn't have much.
How about, I know that favorite passages?
I don't know that I can say I have it just, I just, to me, I've enjoyed every bit of God's Word. It's hard to, my favorite passage, I'd say passage, would be in Romans 8, especially with, beginning with verse 28, and I don't know why it means so much to me, but it just shows, you know, how God chose us, how God elected us in Christ, and then the blessing that we have in Him, and so forth. And I think of all the, of course, I don't know that I say it's my favorite. If I had a favorite, I think that would be it. Romans 8:28 down through verse 32, I think it is, and that to me is a beautiful passage of Scripture, beautiful. And then Ephesians, I love Ephesians. I think that's one of the, especially the first 3 chapters, which are doctrinal. It lifts you into the heavens. So to me, Romans 8:28 and down through 32, and then Ephesians chapter 1, I think is just a wonderful, wonderful passage. And it.
You know, you're picking all big-time Calvinist passages.
Well, I mean, these are really wonderful passages, and then.